One man is dead, and another man faces the death penalty. Is he guilty, or is he not guilty? The evidence has been presented, and a case has been made from the defense and the prosecution. Now, it's down to a jury to decide. This is a tale of prejudice, of assumptions and assertions, of experience and reason, and 12 angry men.
Hey, welcome to Movie Friends. My name is Seth.
And I'm Michelle.
Today we're talking about 12 Angry Men from 1957. Directed by Sidney Lumet, written by Reginald Rose, cinematography by Boris Kaufman, composed by Kenyon Hopkins, edited by Carl Lerner. How many of these guys do I read? Because it's kind of starring all of them, right?
Roll call.
Starring Martin Balsam, John Fiedler, Lee J. Cobb, E.J. Marshall, Jack Klugman, Edward Binns, Jack Warden, Henry Fonda, Joseph Sweeney, Ed Begley, George Voskovic, and Robert Weber. Michelle, how's it going?
How are you, Seth?
Hey, I've been better, but we're recording in the middle of the day. It's a little hot, and we're dressed up like jurors.
Yes, we are. It's a good look for us, I think. It's different. Maybe we should have a uniform when we show up to work.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
The Movie Friends uniform? What would that be?
Well, I guess it's really becoming getting inspired by the movies we're watching and dressing like it. Yeah.
That's fine with me. I like dressing up. I like Halloween.
I know. I love it too.
Hey, we got an email.
We
got an email from Nick.
Which Nick?
Nick Scheist. He's
Nick
the
at
host
Night?
of Bad Movies We Love. And he sent in an email called Space Jaws.
Oh, no.
So he says, "Hey there, movie friends. I've had this email partially composed in my drafts folder for almost 2 months now. But it was wonderful to meet you both at the live show recording. Kristen and I had a ton of fun, and I'm so glad we were able to pull off the surprise." Yeah, that was pretty great, right, when they came?
Oh, that was great. I was really surprised.
As I started the Jaws episode today, holding my breath in trepidation, it reminded me of a movie-based analogy I thought of to better contextualize Michael Jordan while we were listening to the Army of Darkness episode on our way to Toronto. That movie rules, by the way. Wow, so this is a big brain idea here. He's got Jaws going, he's got Space Jam going, he's got Army of Darkness. Wow.
Yeah.
Remember when we did Army of Darkness?
Vaguely.
Yeah. This email is almost 2 months in the making, and I know Seth is not a sports guy, and Michelle isn't a numbers gal, so my apologies in advance, but bear with me for a moment. Imagine Michael Jordan as an aspiring young filmmaker in high school. He joined the AV club and entered a student film contest, but his teacher didn't appreciate his work and excused him from the program. Fueled by that rejection, Jordan set out to prove his teacher wrong. In film school, Jordan's talent was undeniable. He quickly became recognized as one of the most promising freshman filmmakers in the country, leading his school to victory in a prestigious national student film competition. His film was the deciding factor in securing the grand prize. During his sophomore and junior years, he was repeatedly honored as one of the nation's best student filmmakers, earning Student Filmmaker of the Year as a junior. However, he left film school early to pursue his first professional feature film. The anticipation for his debut was immense, landing him on the cover of The Hollywood Reporter under the headline, "A Star is Born." While his first film wasn't an overwhelming success, it earned him the Most Promising First-Time Director award. The next couple of years were challenging in terms of awards recognition, but his movies were still widely enjoyed and commercially successful. In his third year as a full-time director, everything changed. He directed the highest-grossing film of the year, a feat he would repeat for 7 consecutive years. Okay, that is a good analogy, actually. During this time, he became a serious contender at the Oscars, picking up accolades and award season recognition. By the end of those 7 years, Jordan hit the pinnacle of success, winning Best Picture and Best Director 3 years in a row while also dominating the box office. With nothing left to prove, he retired from filmmaking to explore painting, honoring his father's passion for art. Although Jordan's painting wasn't exceptional, people still showed up to watch him and buy his work. But after a year away from filmmaking, he returned to the director's chair. His comeback film was solid, but it didn't quite match his earlier masterpieces. Then the magic struck again. Over the next 3 years, Jordan reclaimed his position at the top, once more winning Best Picture, Best Director, and other Oscars, while maintaining his streak as the box office leader. Satisfied with his achievements, and following the departure of key collaborators, Jordan retired again, this time to explore producing and acting. While this new phase of his career didn't reach the heights of his directorial work, Jordan enjoyed nurturing fresh talent and exploring creative opportunities. Still, the lure of the director's chair called him back. He directed for 2 more years, focusing on passion projects with up-and-coming artists. These films were successful, even if not on the level of his earlier triumphs. When Jordan finally retired for good, his legacy as a filmmaker was unparalleled. His name became synonymous with artistic greatness, inspiring generations of filmmakers despite the many imitators who tried and failed to fill his shoes. All this to say, if anyone deserves a 90-minute commercial celebrating their greatness, it's Michael Jordan. In fact, Space Jam is a better Michael Jordan movie than Air. I'm almost at the end of the Jaws episode, and I'm so glad you recognized the film's brilliance and didn't decide to smash my 25-foot great white heart to pieces. Wet behind the ears, Amity PD Deputy Nicholas Brody.
Wow.
And then he said, P.S. Tell Aunt I said hi.
Oh.
So, hey, that was a really good example, actually, of someone like really dominating in their field.
Yeah.
And if you're curious about Nick's response to our statements on Space Jam, you can check it out. Patreon.com/MovieFriendsPodcast. We have the whole live show video up there, and you can purchase it individually. So if you're like, I don't want to sign up for the month to month, guess what? You can just purchase that one. It's $5, which, trust me, does not begin to cover the amount of money and time that went into it. But hey, that's okay.
That's okay.
Check it out. It's fun.
Yeah.
So thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for your brilliant mind and your fingertips.
Yeah.
Sending that our way.
That's right. And your 25-foot great white heart.
So glad we didn't crush it.
And if you like Nick's insights, check out his podcast that he does, Bad Movies We Love. And hey, if you want to be like Nick, send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about 12 Angry Men or Space Jam or Army of Darkness. We would love to know what you think about Army of Darkness because we probably don't even remember what we thought.
I just know I love the skeletons.
There you go.
It's a skeleton movie.
Mike, do you know what I love most about movies?
Oh, that's easy, Kier. Celebrity gossip.
No. Though I do love a good A-list rivalry.
Is it the civil film discourse that you find on social media?
Oh, Mike. No, what I love most about movies is watching them and obsessing about them, learning more about their history, how they're made, and okay, maybe I love the behind-the-scenes drama too.
Hey, that's what I love. And it's why we started the Filmographers Podcast, the show where we study an entire director's career, one film at a time.
In our first season, we're focusing on Steven Soderbergh, a man who's directed movies you know and love like Ocean's 11, Out of Sight, and Magic Mike. And movies you don't know you love yet, like Bubble and Schizopolis.
No stone unturned. That's what makes us the Filmographers.
Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find all our episodes at filmographerspodcast.com.
Also, you can follow us on Instagram or X, where you'll find us trolling for the latest celebrity gossip.
So before we jump into our discussion on 12 Angry Men, we're going to guess each other's ratings.
Let me grab my pen here.
That was a good rip, right?
That was a great rip.
Let's see if I can recreate it. Wow. I got one little sliver of paper here. And then a pen. And the pen just says, no 2 ways out of every room. What an ominous message.
Where is that from?
Like KNOW. Like you should know 2 ways out of every room. I don't
I
know.
never have pens with
desk.
fun quotes.
This isn't fun. This makes me feel scared. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm locked in.
Okay. I am also locked in. Does November not feel like the fastest month that we've ever done.
I keep saying to anyone who will listen that I need another week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, yeah, I feel like I lost out.
It's crazy how fast this month has gone by.
And I said it last week, and I've been saying that I feel like Sethvember is truly the shortest month that we've done. It really feels that way.
Yeah, so odd.
Yeah.
We only had one movie that was over 2 hours, really.
I think you're right on that.
Yeah. Easy breezy.
Beautiful movie, friends.
Yeah. So this movie, 12 Angry Men, this was our patron voted movie for the month. I gave them a list of movies and they voted this one in kind of overwhelmingly. And I was a little bummed out because there were some weird movies on there that I was hoping. I was like, maybe.
What was a close second, if you'll share?
Oh man, I don't know.
You don't know.
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. That was another. I think that was maybe second place.
Is that like a time travel space movie?
It's everything. It's so weird. It will come up later.
It's gonna come. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But 12 Angry Men, this was a movie that meant a lot to me as a kid. When DVD players came out,
Remember that?
People were putting out DVDs of classic movies, and you just kind of bought stuff because you had this machine that could only play like 2 things that you owned. So you just bought a bunch of DVDs, right? And I don't know if you remember when they were paper. The cases were made of paper.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was a movie that my parents bought. I would have been about 11 or 12, maybe. We've talked a lot about like me growing up watching movies and how there was always movies on in our house, but 12 Angry Men was the first movie that I obsessively watched over and over and over again. Even when I was a kid, I wasn't like, oh, let me watch, Aladdin for the 5th time today, right? But I would watch 12 Angry Men like 3 times in one day.
How old are you? When is this happening?
Like 11, 12-ish area.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to read something you texted to me the other night.
Sure.
You said, when fall comes and you take out your winter clothes and your oldest and most favorite sweater goes back on, this is what this movie is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want you to expand on that. I think we're going there, but.
Sure. I mean, I've lived in this room with these guys for so many hours. It being shorter is definitely helpful. In rewatching it, but there was probably a month straight that I watched this every single day to 2 times to 3 times a day. I was so like dumbstruck by what was happening on screen, and there's nothing happening.
Well, I think this movie's saying a lot without saying a lot, right?
Yeah.
Were you taken by the story, the acting, the filming of it, the staging, the framing, all of it?
All of it. This was the first movie. Again, I'm like 11, 12. I'm starting to develop a real personality, beyond just like, hey, I'm a kid.
Right.
This was the first time in my life that I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, and not even just like, oh, I love it, but like, this is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. There's not a moment that's wasted. It doesn't go on too long. So I guess I was just in love with finding something that was perfect.
Did this make you want to make movies?
No.
Okay, so this isn't that type of movie for you.
No, this wasn't that type of thing. This was just like the next level, kind of like how I talked last week in Paris, Texas. And when I watched Paris, Texas, I was like, oh my God, I didn't really know that you could do that to someone's heart, like through a movie, what that movie does to me. This was kind of the first example of that in my life, 12 Angry Men.
Do I know what movie made you want to make movies? We must have talked about this.
I don't really want to make movies.
Well, okay, but like
I
make little like videos and stuff. Like we've talked about stuff we want to make, and we've made stuff. I mean, we made a short for Space Jam. I guess that's on theme for a project.
Yeah. And like I'm working on this documentary, right?
Yeah.
Which is very exciting. But that's more oh, this is a phenomenal story. This is an opportunity to do something. I know a lot about it and I can do it. And so I'm going to do that. Right. But I plan on, hanging up my filmmaker hat. And then, well, I don't know if we should talk about what you and I, should we? I mean, we can talk about it, right?
We
It's
can
not
talk.
weird.
We could do whatever we want. We don't have to give specifics, but
Yeah. But you and I are talking about
yeah.
the beginning stages of doing something. And so
Yeah.
that's maybe more just like, again, like we can do it. We have the time to do it and we
Right.
want to do it. So
Yeah, I know. I never looked at it like what we're going to work on or any of our things of like, oh, I'm a filmmaker now. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, I just like making stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, if you wanted to pinpoint like the movies that inspired me to like go out and make stuff, it would definitely be the Roxburgh Farley movies for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
To answer your question about the thing I texted you,
Oh yeah. I was like, what did I ask?
revisiting this movie, it feels exactly like that. You take the old sweater out of the bin and you slip it on and you're like, still fits.
Still cozy. Still love
fits,
it.
still cozy. I've worn it. I have a sweater that I've worn since I was probably 17
Nice.
and still wear it.
Yeah.
No holes, no nothing.
Ah.
And
Love that.
it's not like my favorite piece of clothing, but when I put it on, I'm like, yep, I'm still back here. I'm still wearing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my kind of experience and love with it. What about you?
Well, I have a follow up.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So you watched this a bunch of times when you were younger.
Yep.
Did this become like a yearly watch? Do you still watch it over and over?
I would say in recent years, I've only watched it maybe like 3 times over 5 years.
Okay.
But it is something that I still throw on. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't really have like yearly. There's nothing. The only one that is like locked into the schedule is I watch Les Mis every Christmas Eve.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Hey, we all have one.
It's
we all
such
have
a
one.
dark, depressing tale, but
Yeah.
for me, it works for Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Like I told you last week, I saw this movie in school.
Mhm.
Anthony saw this movie in school. I think a lot of us saw it in school. And that's the last time I watched it. So I've seen it twice now.
Nice.
Yeah.
A lot of the reviews that I read were students angry that they were made to watch this in school. A lot of them, the half-star reviews, they were like, I can't believe I had to watch this. It's just men yelling at each other.
First off, when you're a kid in school and the teacher's like, we're watching a movie today, hip, hip, hooray. Who cares what the movie is? You get to, the lights go out, you get to watch a movie and not do paperwork. So those half stars can shove it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Did this second time, almost 20 years later, revisiting it, were you like, I remember this?
Yeah. But also a lot that I didn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the ending was unclear.
Mm-hmm.
And I can imagine, well, I don't know. Well, you're someone who has seen this a bunch of times now. Like the movie starts off and you're like, is juror number 8 going to convince the rest of the men to vote not guilty? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time you watch, you kind of lose that. You already know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Does that lose the appeal for you? Or do you just focus on other things that are happening?
Yeah, I'm just focused on the performances.
Mm-hmm.
I'm focused on what's being said.
Yeah.
It feels fresh every time because I think all of the performances feel so real.
Yes.
Like there's only one person in this, and there's only one person in this that I feel is a little bit heightened to like sensational. And it might be surprising, my answer. But it's juror number 8, Henry Fonda.
Okay. So on that note,
Yeah.
Seth created a collage of all the jurors and their names and like little traits underneath them.
Yeah, to keep them in order.
Which I like really appreciate because visual aids are always helpful. And I wanted to ask you this when you sent it to me, but I was like, let me wait. For number 8, you put Henry Fonda, architect, kind of insane.
Yeah.
So that's what struck me. And I was like, does he mean he's kind of insane for taking on this duty of questioning the other men? Or do you really think he's insane? Because of the knife? Like, why do you think he's insane?
Maybe it's just because I've gotten older, you know? And as a kid, I'm watching this movie. I'm like, Henry Fonda, you're such a hero. Like, you're going and buying a knife. You're going and investigating the crime scene.
Which is like not allowed, by the way.
Not allowed.
No.
This time around, I was like, this is a man who's like, he's so hell-bent on not even proving that the kid is innocent, just trying to create reasonable doubt in everyone's mind, which I know in a jury, that's the point. You're not set out to prove that they're innocent, just that they're not guilty. And that's why you don't declare guilty or innocent. You declare guilty or not guilty. And that's such an interesting idea and like distinction that I think a lot of people don't get. And when he's talking to them and he keeps saying like, I have a doubt, they're like, right, but he's not innocent. And he's like, right, I'm not saying that.
Right. So like, how does that make him insane?
No. I don't think that idea is insane. It's just kind of the way that he goes about it. And there's a moment towards the end when all of the jurors have declared not guilty, except for juror number 3, Lee J. Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
And juror number 8 goes around the table and he looks at him and he says, "You're all alone." And I was like, oh my God, you're kind of, and I don't want to freak anybody out. It's like, you're kind of like the devil.
Whoa.
Just playing on everybody. You know what I mean? Like pitting people against each other. There's so much like emotional and mental manipulation that's happening here. And I think a lot of the jurors do dig their own holes. Like so many things that people say early on are then brought up later and used against them. And kind of when they see their own prejudice or their own illogical thinking, that's the only thing that gets them to change. Because it's like, oh my God, wait, I was wrong about that thing. And so I guess I could be wrong. And I don't want to try to paint juror number 8 as necessarily a bad guy, because I don't think that he is a bad guy, right? I was really overtaken with the performance from Henry Fonda this time. He starts out very, well, you know, I just think we should talk about it, to like...
Well, yeah, I mean, as time goes on, of course, he's going to become more excited and heated.
He's walking around the room. He's walking around the room with a limp. And they're all sweaty. And he's like, time it. What's the time? I reenacting this.
Hey, that was important for it.
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's all great. But again, like, I'm just thinking to myself, like, if I'm sitting in this room, you know, we're supposed to be deliberating, and there's this guy who's really running through all these theatrics, which makes for such a good movie. But if you try to like think of this, if you're in a juror's room and a dude starts walking around with a fake limp, wouldn't you be like, okay, what are we?
No, I'd be like, I need a visual aid. Set up those chairs. Let's measure this distance. I am with you, juror number 8. Let's go.
Yeah, and I am with him. I
think you want to go to the baseball game.
I think no.
Seth is like, I'm sweating. I'm out.
No.
Guilty.
No. That I think that guy's actually my least. Well, you've got the racist guy, right? Yeah. So you've got juror number 10, played by Ed Begley. This dude.
Oh my God, he's so gross.
He's racist, and so obviously that's at the top of the list. But beyond that, this dude is using what I believe to be the same wad of tissues throughout the entire movie. He's blowing his nose. He's wiping his mouth. He's rubbing the sweat off. If they are indeed multiple wads, I think that we are not shown that. And so whether it is on purpose or not, this dude is wiping his face with snot. Oh, it's disgusting.
No, I think he's using the same hanky.
It might be a hanky. Yeah.
Either way, gross.
But it's too much.
And he's
Too
like,
much.
"Oh, these summer colds."
Oh, God. I could gag right now.
Yeah,
just
me
thinking
too.
about
Also,
it.
take that sound out that I just made because I
Okay.
want to gag that I just did that.
I'll put in a wow. Wee.
Achoo.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously he's like the most kind of despicable guy in the room. But then the salesman guy, oh man, I can't stand that guy.
He just is a follower
Mhm.
and can't have a decision for himself until the end.
Mhm.
And it's like you work in ad sales and he's just like, I just need to doodle. Helps me think.
Oh, that guy. No, I'm talking about sports guy.
Oh, sport. My apologies.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
ad man. Okay.
Yeah. Juror number 12 is the ad man.
Yes.
Who's like, it's just like Don Draper kind of.
Right? But because Don Draper is definitely someone who would be a part of the
Oh,
conversation in a
Don
way.
Draper would have been manipulating everyone in that room. He would have
Yeah.
had them in tears
Yes.
and in fisticuffs, I think.
You're talking about juror number 7.
Yes.
Got
Yeah.
it. My
Baseball
apologies.
Guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Juror number 7, played by
Jack Warden.
Jack Warden. Now, he makes a comment in the bathroom to juror number 8. He
Mhm.
says, last year, I made $27,000 selling marmalade, which, hey, that's not so bad considering marmalade, which is funny, right?
Yeah.
And I was curious what the buying power of $27,000 in 1957 would be today.
Uh-huh.
This doesn't seem right. And I went to 2 different inflation calculators because I was like, this just can't possibly be right.
You sure that's what he said? Well,
Yeah.
I'll trust you. You've seen this. I didn't
Yeah.
catch that line. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's when he asks him, what do you do? He asks during a
Yeah.
rate, and he says, I'm an architect. And he says, oh, he's like, because he mentions the soft sell. He's like, do you know what the soft sell is? Because you've got it, whatever. $27,000 in 1957 is equal to $300,000 in 2024. Should I fact check this right now, live?
I believe you. I don't like.
All right, let's go. Inflation calculator.
What kind of marmalade are we talking?
We'll do 27000 in January of 1957. The same buying power as, $308,000 in 2024. So that totally changed my perception of juror number 7, baseball guy. If you made $300,000 selling marmalade nowadays, you'd be rich. That's a lot of money. $300,000.
Yes, it
right?
is. Yes, it is.
So yeah, like his kind of like snazzy hat and his like bing bang booming around the room and yucking it up and hey, I got tickets to the baseball game. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a rich guy. And apart from the stockbroker and then I guess juror number 8, who's an architect, it's like a different version of a rich guy, right? Because juror number 4, played by E.J. Marshall, the guy with the glasses who doesn't sweat. You know, he's a stockbroker. He's like a wealthy guy. Well, that's such a...
Well, he doesn't sweat until he sweats.
He doesn't sweat until he feels he's under pressure.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a good gimmick. It's a good classic little thing. It's a little silly. Now we're like almost getting into like a magical element. Like, how are you in this room wearing a suit and you're just not sweating? Like you have a medical issue, this guy.
Oh, you're lucky.
Sweating helps cool your body down. That dude his brain would have been boiling in his body.
Yeah.
You and I always like to talk about people's ages in movies.
Yes.
Do
you have ages for me?
Would you like to know who we are older than in this movie?
I would. I love this game.
Okay. So you are 37?
Yes.
And I'm 36.
Yes.
Okay. You are the same age as juror number 1.
Is that what those numbers mean?
It is what those numbers mean. Yes. We are older than juror number 2. He was 32 when he was in this movie. Juror number 2 is the bank teller. He's the mousy guy who He's got a real high voice, kind
He
of.
offers suckles and cough
Yeah.
drops.
Yep. We are older than juror number 5, played by Jack Klugman. He's the guy who grew up in the slums who knows about knives. We are the same age, or you're older than juror number 7, the baseball guy. He's my age. And we are both older than juror number 12, the ad man. He was 32. So if anyone here listening to this is born in 1987 or 1988, you are older than several of these men.
I don't even know what to do anymore. I don't even know how to feel.
It's crazy, right?
I am always so curious of like when people look at us.
Yeah.
Let's say people start listening to us. They Google or they go to our social media. They're like, oh, that's Michelle's face. That's Seth's face.
Yeah.
And then I wonder, how old do they think we are?
Right.
I would love to know. Send us an email. If you found us, then you went and saw pictures of us. Is this what you pictured we'd look like? And then please send us how old you thought we were. I would love that, actually.
Never in a million years would I have thought that we're both years older than juror number 2.
Never.
Yeah. And
think-
also, having seen this movie when I'm 11 or 12, these are grown men to me. And so they will always be that, right?
Yes,
They'll always be the older men in the room. And surpassing them in age is a really weird thing.
Like if me and juror number 1, Martin, stood next to each other.
If you put your faces next to each other, yeah. Do you look the same age?
Wow. It's just so fascinating.
Yeah. Someone that we're not older than.
Mm.
Juror number 9, played by Joseph Sweeney.
I love this guy. I love this guy so much. You don't?
Oh no! I like him. I like him too.
I like him just fine.
He's the first person to sway his vote.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in thinking of like the emotional tactics of juror number 8, he's like the guy who's used to kind of get everyone else to like listen, because he's an older guy. He's maybe a little bit more sympathetic. He's a little soft spoken. If you've learned anything about this movie, forgive me if you're hearing this, but it is pretty fascinating and helps the story move along, and it helps make sense of like why this movie is so magnetic. When the movie starts, they're filming above them a lot, and the camera is placed above their eye line. Then as the movie progresses, the camera is set at their eye line, so now you're facing them dead on. And then when we get into the end, when things are starting to get more frantic and emotional, they're filming from below their eye line. So now we're looking up at them. And Sidney Lumet said he wanted to do that because he wanted you to feel like the ceiling was introduced and was like kind of closing in on them. And so we start doing these close-ups. It works great. Obviously, the dialogue and the acting is helping us to feel like more crazy and frantic, but the camera work is aiding in that. And it's such a simple little thing to do that is such good advice for anyone who's making a movie. It's like, just think about how your camera is set up and what that helps communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't need special effects to make your picture have an emotional response. But juror number 9 gets so many close-ups.
The camera loves his face. Like it's obsessed.
No shade to Joseph Sweeney, born in 1884, I believe. He's long since passed, but this dude looks like a wax figure. Like he just finding out that he was only 74. It was also very, very shocking to me because I was like 74. Mm-hmm. That's not like one foot in the grave kind of a thing. But this guy, he's old.
Mm-hmm.
Not to jump to the end, but how did you feel about him and juror number 8's final interaction outside?
I love it. I love that. Hey, what's your name? Shake hands. Okay. And they go on with their lives. And this was just a moment in time.
Yep. I love
It's perfect.
That.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. And Joseph Sweeney sells that well, bye.
Yeah, that's it.
He sells it so good because for us, we're about to walk out of the theater or we're about to leave this movie. It's life and death, and it's justice and society, and all of these things are on the line. But once your duty is done, it's like, well, bye.
You go back to your life. That's it.
Yes. Have you ever served on a jury?
No,
Mm.
I know. I've never been summoned. Have you?
I've been summoned twice, and both times I received another letter saying, actually, never mind, don't worry about it. Isn't
We don't
that
want
weird?
you. That is so weird.
Yeah, like either the case was settled or something happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember both times being like, oh my God, how am I going to get out of work? And I have
Well,
to go do
isn't
this
that always
jury
the
thing.
follow-up thought, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody ever wants to do it.
Yeah.
Everybody, and if you are called, you hope that they don't choose you during selection. And then if you are chosen, it's like, well, I hope let's just wrap this up.
Mhm.
This still holds up today in that
Absolutely
frame of thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of their opinions on it,
Yeah.
except for juror number 11, the European watchmaker dude.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, this is a great thing about this country.
Mm-hmm.
You get a letter in the mail. They tell you got to come down. You come down and you give your vote and then you leave.
Yeah.
I'm pretty surprised that in today's media obsessed, camera obsessed world that juries haven't kind of become more anonymous.
What do you mean?
Like, in other words, like, sitting on a jury and giving a verdict and then going about your life, just the way that people are crazy nowadays and like retaliation and
Yeah.
obviously you're not like standing up and saying, hey, this is my name and this is where I live, but still it's pretty amazing that it's still just like open like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a favorite juror?
Probably juror number 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Me too.
And I felt like I related the most probably to him.
Mhm.
Well, because I asked you this question. I asked Ant this question too. Like, if you were to be one of the jurors, which one would you be? Right?
Yeah.
And then I think that question can be answered 2 ways. One, which one do you relate to the most personally? And then the second is, which one would you want to play?
Ooh.
Like, which one is the most fun? If you were in this play, right?
Interesting. Okay.
So that being said, Ant and I both felt we would be either juror number 1, because I'd be like, okay, the foreman, be like, okay, let's stay organized and trying to be the most even-keeled one. And then, but number 2, as soon as number 2 was like, hey, I have cough drops, that's me. I'm always have like a little suckle in my bag. I'm like, who needs? Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I'm a little guy with glasses.
Yeah. I love juror number 2. He's so funny, but soft spoken. And
Yeah.
he's just kind of like, well, guys, what do you think? I love juror number 2. Who I would want to play? I would probably want to play either juror number 3 or juror number 7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have like the believable soft-spoken cadence of Henry Fonda to pull off juror number 8. Like, I think people would be suspicious of me. You know what I mean?
As soon as you slam that knife on the table, like, no, don't trust this one.
Yeah. What else does he have up there? But I think I could pull off playing the 2 big, loudest jerks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I could play 2. Maybe I could play 12.
Sure. Adman?
I'm thinking of like my capabilities. Like, is 12 the most fun? No, but I could probably pull off 12.
I think that 12 is kind of the most fun because he just until it really gets down to it. Yeah, he's so in his own world. He's so like not. He's decided already what his vote is, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's like everything else is. I don't need to be part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you have a least favorite juror?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, no, because they all play a part.
Yeah.
Obviously, the things that Ten says really gets to me, and his tissue really just.
Yeah.
he was gross, but they all really serve a purpose. So no. Did you?
I guess just in terms of like, I feel like he maybe does the least amount of stuff would be juror number 6. Juror number 6 played by Edward Binns. He's the guy who's a house painter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He just kind of doesn't do a lot, and I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, on that note, like when you think about the men, that one I think can be kind of brushed aside. You don't think of him right away.
Yeah. He kind of gives the least. And then juror number 5, Jack Klugman. He's the guy who grew up in the slums.
Yeah.
What's great about this movie is you have 12 men in relative age. No one here is in their early 20s. You have one guy who's senior, right? But then everyone else is like mid 30s to early 50s. So relative age. They're all white.
Mm-hmm.
And they are all employed in one way or another. They all live in the same city. And so you would think those are a lot of similarities between all of them. And they all come into the room with the same verdict, right? But it's not until you start to push and make assumptions that you learn all of the different things about the men that do make them really, really, really different. And I love when number 5 is like, hey, by the way, I've lived in a slum my entire life. So maybe let's not use that as part of why this kid is guilty. Because if that's the truth, then I'm guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3, when number 3 yells out, I'll kill him. And then they're like, you don't really mean that, right? It's pretty great. And you have a good example here of men from different backgrounds. Number 1, he's an assistant coach for a high school football team. So he's like an educator. You got a bank teller, you got a business owner, salesman. Number 6, who I mentioned, he's a house painter. He mentions a lot that he's not really educated. And in the notes for this, which you can find online, like that's the type of demographic that he was supposed to represent. Like he's somewhat out of his element in like all of the legal speak and everything. And he's like, I'm not really a thinker.
Is he the one who says, I'm not a supposing man?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I get that.
Okay, so we mentioned him somewhat in passing, but juror number 3, Lee J. Cobb.
Wow. We have some deep-rooted issues with his son.
Yes.
So you can't help but take that into consideration of how we're acting. How do you view him as watching this as someone who watched this movie before kids and now you're a dad of 2 kids?
Sure, absolutely. I guess I feel a lot more for juror number 3. He's an interesting one because when I was a kid, I would have looked at him and been like, oh yeah, that's like an angry old racist guy. But I don't think that's true. I think that he uses everyone else's like anger and prejudice and perhaps gullibility, or he's able to pressure them a little bit and they fold to get what he wants. So by the end of it, we realize like he's just using this position of power to take out his anger that he has in his own life, because his son won't talk to him. And so what can he do? What can you do when someone just abandons you?
Yeah.
You can't reason with them and you can't make it make sense and you can't influence them and bully them, and because he's just not there. He might as well be dead, really. Obviously, I can't justify him trying to sway people if he really thinks that the kid is not guilty. Because I think halfway through the discussion, he knows that he's not guilty.
Yeah.
But he's just the type of guy who can't back down and can't turn around. He's stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love this performance.
So good. And the amount of times where he essentially ate his own words.
Oh, man, it's so good.
It's really good.
So now you have him, now he's embarrassed, and now he feels tricked, and so now he's becoming more dangerous. Yeah. I want to talk about the knife.
Which one?
Did you remember the knife?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So when that happens, what are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, I was like, oh man. And I was also like, wait a minute. This wouldn't be allowed to, as a jury person, go and to the crime scene. And I mean, I know they saw the knife in for evidence, but just to go back and all the things. But the knife, when that happened, that was my first note that I wrote down. I just wrote knife in capitals and
Knife.
exclamation point. Yeah, literally knife.
And that's what they wrote in the script too. Knife.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great kind of turning point, because now it's like, all right, now this guy doesn't just want to talk.
No.
This guy brought a knife, which, can you imagine having a knife with you in court?
Well, clearly at that time, this is 1957. We're not getting pat down.
It's like, hey, here comes the juries. Let them in. Yeah.
Don't have to go through any checkpoint.
But this is when, like I said, you kind of are like, wait, there's something different about this guy. Like,
and the way he just like places it on the table. He did not come lightly.
He could have he could have played it much cooler, where he just like takes it out of his pocket, flicks it open, and he's like, well, what about this? Nope. Right. He stands up and throws it down right in front of him.
We're proving a point.
Yeah, and we're damaging government property.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Nobody cared about that.
No, you need to make your point.
One thing I do remember from the first time watching this, when he pulls that knife out and throws it down, I thought that, because he says like, oh, I went back and walked around, I thought that he actually did find the knife that slipped through the kid's pocket.
Oh, you didn't think he bought?
No.
One?
Because he says, he's like, yeah, it cost me $6. That just totally passed over my head. And so I was like, oh my God, he went back and found the murder weapon.
Yeah. I think I made a joke to Aunt. I'm like, oh, this guy, juror number 8, is the one who actually murdered the dad.
And right. And so you start to think like, oh, something is, yeah. What did Anthony think of this?
Anne has seen it before, like I said, in school. And so he actually volunteered to watch it with me. He's like, oh, I'll watch this again. This is a good one. Aunt just kept making jokes. He's like, what you should do is when you go to record with Seth, have a spreadsheet and do like not a spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation, and mark when a man gets angry. So be like, if 15 minutes in, we have 2 men that are angry, kind of like a count.
Right.
An angry man counter.
I think it's a great title.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. And I don't think it necessarily, I mean, obviously it describes the movie, but it says something more about like just the idea of a jury. Like, this movie freaks me out when thinking about juries. This does not make me feel good. I don't come to the end of this and think, oh, wow, look, like justice prevailed and this is the way that it would be, because that's not the way that it would be.
Right.
While we want to participate in our civic duty and help, bring justice to people, so much of what happens in that room is based on prejudice and misinformation or not getting all of the facts. And so it's like, wow, like, the burden of putting a case together clearly and then expressing it to people, and they still don't maybe understand all of it.
It is scary.
That's very scary. Yeah, it's very, very tough.
Yeah.
My wife, Jean Marie, she's currently serving on a grand jury.
Oh, what does that mean?
So that's like New York State, whether to indict people or not. And
got it.
When you serve on a grand jury, you have to serve for a year. So it's not just one case. You are serving for 1 year.
So does that mean she is called in at certain times? Because she's still able to work.
Yeah. So it's once a week. But what they don't tell you is, if your cases that you're currently sitting on the jury for aren't resolved, you have to continue serving. So she's going on now like almost 1.5 years. Wow. Yep.
How does she like that experience?
I think she likes it. She can't talk about it.
Well, I know, right. But yeah, there could be a mood behind it.
Sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think she enjoys
What
you
she
know.
has to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then juror number 8, I've already kind of given my impression of him, from this time around, but how did you feel about him?
I did not have that impression
Mhm.
that he is the devil and Satan and kind of insane. I appreciated him for leading the men to question and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So I very much appreciated all of the examples that he brought to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And also keeping the composure of, I don't know if he's innocent.
Right.
But I think this deserves to be questioned more.
Yeah. So I guess my next question would be, do you think that the kid is innocent?
Yeah. Like my gut is yes.
Uh-huh.
But I think that's usually just how I fall with things. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think the example of the old man getting there in 15 seconds stuck with me. Also the eyeglasses, because as someone who wears eyeglasses and you wear eyeglasses, and so the final example of the woman who saw what she says she saw through the L train window.
Yep.
I was like, oh yeah, okay. Right, because if you didn't have your glasses on and it's nighttime and you just woke up and you're going to say you definitely saw this person stab another person, I don't know.
Right. It's tough.
Right, and it also just makes me think, and I always think about this, and I don't know why, because I've watched a lot of, I don't know, true crime stuff and Herb stories and all that, but I always think of Serial season 1.
Sure, of course.
But right, and Sarah Koenig being like, do you remember where you were, 15 plus years ago at this time? And so many people, when she questions the people and being like, I think I was in the library at 1 p.m. or
right.
How are we supposed to remember? I couldn't tell you where I was yesterday to the hour.
It is another element that is scary.
Yeah.
When you think about
yes.
convictions. And, I'm not here to say that like every conviction is incorrect and that we have to throw away the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what if juror number 3 was one of the eyewitnesses?
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to, and he says, he's like, they testified in open court. Why would someone lie? Why would someone lie? Why would someone do that? But if you think you saw something and you tell it to the police, and then a few weeks later you get contacted by a prosecutor and you have to tell it to them, and then they tell you, okay, how are you going to say this on the stand? And you go through it, and then at what point are you going to kind of back away from your original statement?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can convince yourself of anything.
Yep. Juror number 3 also says that he's sat on a lot of juries. He's got his notepad, like he has done this before, basically, and he thinks that all of the talking was for nothing, that there's no point in talking through any of the stuff because you have these statements and things are the way that they are, and we should just leave them as they are, and we should go
and you
based
have
on
the
facts.
evidence and you have the facts, so just go off of what is presented to you.
Yeah. I don't know if the kid is innocent. It seems real strange that your dad would get stabbed with the same knife that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and also if you, to bring up going to the movies as your alibi, if you did do it, you would think you would make sure you knew what movies.
That's true. Yeah, you would have an alibi. So him not having an alibi, him not really knowing the details, you think speaks to him. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there an answer?
No. Some stuff is left ambiguous. They purposefully leave his ethnicity somewhat ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I mean, I'm half Mexican. I always just thought he was Mexican. Really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but they wanted to leave it so that it wasn't just this one thing. And number 10's rant later on in the movie, where he's talking about, oh, they're really big drinkers, they're really big liars, you can't trust them. There's a lot of talk about people coming to the country and like thinking that they run the place. That can apply to, and has applied in American history, to many, many
Oh,
different ethnic groups, including Italian people and Irish people. And it seems each new wave that comes in just gets the crap kicked out of them by the people who came before them. And it's really unfortunate. Like, you think people would be like, hey, when Italians came to this country, we were hated, and we'll be nice, to the next people. It's like, no, not really. One of the ways that I think about this movie is I don't necessarily think about it like a legal procedural or like a courtroom drama. This movie to me feels like you have men who are trapped in a room, and they have like a limited amount of time before they have to solve a puzzle or whatever, and they have to work together. And if they don't, like, spikes are going to come out of the wall and kill them. So I kind of think about this like the movie Saw. And I think I think that this is a very, very specific story, but there's just such good like universal truths in human interaction in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if someone watches this and they're like, oh, I don't really like legal stuff, or if they're not really sure, or it's like, I don't want to listen to 12 men yelling, just think of it like, like a horror movie.
Yeah. Or just like you don't need to know legalese or anything to watch this.
No,
just watch people communicate and different communication styles.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I love the fact that it's pretty much like a bottle movie.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
I love bottle episodes of television. So
absolutely.
That's what comes to mind when I think of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one location. I love one location movies.
Yeah, me too.
People are always like, does it really count if it's, we get a shot of the outside? Yes.
Or in the bathroom.
Come on.
Yeah.
This is in one spot.
Because it's not, time isn't passing also.
So that's an interesting thing. And I tried to get a definitive answer.
Rather.
If this is filmed.
Like in real time?
In real, yeah.
Like were the men in that room for an hour and 27 minutes or whatever?
Right. Because it kind of feels that way. We're kind of going from conversation to conversation. There's a few moments where you get a little break where they're like looking out the window. Yeah. It's almost like, well, hey, I have something else.
But an hour and a half doesn't feel long enough for what we saw.
I know. I mean, come on.
We're right now at an hour and 5 minutes. Us talking.
Right.
So everything that happened there, it has to be longer, I think.
I think both of us know from podcasting, if you had 12 people on one Zoom call to discuss one movie, it would take it would take a lot longer.
Yeah.
Later in the movie, juror number 10 goes on his racist rant that we were already talking about. And it's a little on the nose, but I think it works. Everybody just starts turning away and walking away from him. And he starts out so loud. And then he just, as each person turns away from him, he gets quieter and quieter. Because it's like, when you have an audience for that, I think you get louder and louder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that might be a good lesson for us today.
Just zip it and walk away.
Yeah.
You cannot argue with someone like that.
Yeah.
Also, visually, it was a great scene, and it felt very much like a play.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah. And this is based on they did a teleplay of this,
which is cool.
And it was only an hour. So imagine that. Imagine telling this story in only an hour. That's crazy. So there's been a lot of different versions of this. And I got to tell you, I haven't seen like any of them.
Yeah, when I went to go watch this, I was like, I'm pretty sure we're doing this version.
Mhm.
But then it started playing I don't know what year it was, but Jack Lemmon's in it.
Oh, 1997.
And
I have seen
love
that
Jack
one.
Lemmon, but I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right.
I have seen that one. So that was directed by William Friedkin, who did
Uh-huh.
The Exorcist and
Oh, wow.
Cruising and Sorcerer, like incredible. And he takes 12 Angry Men, and it was a made for TV movie. So they updated some of the dialogue, and it wasn't all just 12 white guys anymore. I have seen that one. It's very good. And yeah, if you like Jack Lemmon, and George C. Scott, I think, plays juror number 3. Oh man, talk about a good yeller. But yeah, like it seems like every country of the world has done like their version of 12 Angry Men. And there's a Japanese version that I very much want to see, because in that one, juror number 3 has to convince them all that he's guilty.
Ooh. So a switch.
Yeah, they all go into the room saying that the person is innocent.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think the translation of that title is 12 Polite Japanese Men.
Wow.
Don't hold me to that, but yeah.
I won't. I don't remember who said it, but I wrote this phrase down because I've never heard it before.
Okay.
And we know I don't know phrases, it seems.
Sure.
Plain as the nose on your face.
You never heard that?
Nope. Well, I guess I have because I've seen this movie, but I didn't
Right.
clock it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a
Plain
really
as
good
the
one.
nose on your face.
Yeah.
I also love and have said frequently in my own life, running up the flagpole and see who salutes it. I've said that many times. And then he has a follow-up to that one, which is nowhere near as good. It says, let's put it out on the stoop and see who licks it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you just say something, guy? Like, can you just talk like a normal person, please? So this movie was made for $340,000 and couldn't find a definitive box office number. I guess it currently sits at 2 million, but that includes home rentals once this came to home rentals. Yeah. I know that it was a box office disappointment is how it's described. I don't know that it was a box office bomb necessarily. But Henry Fonda came on to produce this. He saw the original telefilm and was like, I want to make this into a movie. This would be a great movie. And they hire on Sidney Lumet, who at the time had done television. This was his first feature, which that's another one of the things that I love about this movie is that, yes, Lumet had done a lot of things before, so he had technical experience. But for a debut feature, like 12 Angry Men is one of the best debut features of all time.
Wow.
And it being a box office disappointment, obviously at the time that would suck, you know? Henry Fonda, this was the only time he ever produced a movie because he just didn't enjoy the process, I suppose. Just keep that in mind. Box office disappointment. This has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, 4.6 on Letterboxd. This is the third highest rated film of all time on there.
Wow.
97 on Metacritic. This is in the Criterion Collection. This was included in the National Film Registry in 2007. Ebert gave it 4 stars. And this was produced in 21 days. Wow. So if you're out there and you think, I'm making this movie for no money and it's in one location and I've only got 3 weeks to shoot it. Hey, that's the story of 12 Angry Men. And it doesn't matter if your movie makes money. Yes, in the moment that would suck, but look at this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think for me, like doing these movies this month, I've realized like the theme, I think if any theme has emerged other than movies that I like simple movies and I like movies with no frills. And I like it when you can just tell me a story and the story is like always what matters to me. And that's why, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers out there, but a movie like Avatar just doesn't do anything for me. I'm just like, okay. And he's like, "But look at it; it looks great." I'm like, I don't care. Like I've seen this story before, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we asked some friends on Twitter what they thought, and even though this movie is universally loved, we didn't really get a big response.
That doesn't surprise me.
It kind of surprised me. I was like, "Oh man,
Well, how
12
many
Angry
people
Men."
are talking about this or thinking about it on the regular? It's one of those where it's like if you've seen it, I would hope you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that was really good," and then you kind of move on.
I've never moved on.
Well, right, not you.
Yeah. Ben at Ben Sower says a most perfect film. Whoa, most
Whoa.
perfect.
Most perfect.
Felicia at Cinemaroni says this is one of the few times where an all-male cast is not only justified but welcomed.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I do kind of like the idea of just putting 12 men in a room and like watching them all self-destruct.
Yeah, like is
and,
this just
destroy
how
each other.
men communicate? It's kind of like a social science experiment.
Yeah, I do think that there are some generalizations that work, but I'm always hesitant to say like, yeah, if you put any 12 men in a room, that this is how it'd be. Because I've known very wise, gentle men over my life, and I think you could end up with a room of juror number twos, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. But that was another complaint that I saw a lot. People were like, there's no women in this movie.
There's only the women's bathroom.
Yep. I was like, I don't think that's really the point.
Yeah, well, I don't think it wouldn't be accurate for this time either.
Yeah. And because we're dealing with race, you know, we do have the guy who is a naturalized American from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's able to kind of say, hey, you know, maybe let's not use this as a thing.
Right.
Right. But I do think for the story, it being 12 white men talking about this kid, I think that that's part of it. I don't think it's necessarily a bug. I think it's a feature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A Ton of Bricks
Hey.
at A Ton of Bricks said Sidney Lumet was so good at his job. And I agree. I think that this movie is so well made. Like what part of this isn't good, you know? All right, so there's some people that we do know. Now we go to a segment of the show where we hear from people that we don't know. It's called Half Star, 3-Star, 5-Star. All right, so these are reviews from Letterboxd.com. We start with a 1/2-star review, which is the lowest rating that you can give a movie. We go all the way up to a 5-star review, which is the highest rating that you can give a movie. And do you have a...
I would like you to try to read this as a juror who's trying to convince me of how this person feels. So I'm going to feel the exact opposite of the 1/2-star, which is pro.
Yeah.
This is like debate class, and I need you to read it and present it to me that I should be convinced.
Okay. All right, so I guess I'm just going to try as like juror number 3.
You are passionate about your answer, and you believe you are true.
Okay. Sidney Lumet is one of the worst directors in cinema history. 12 Angry Men is a prime example of his ignorance and incompetence. This film was shot in black and white, which I despise. Color films are so much better and more entertaining. The technology was available in 1957 to make this already boring film in color. But Lumet and the budget-obsessed studio opted for awful black and white. I abhor Sidney Lumet, and I abhor this film.
That was great, Seth.
1/2-star.
I mean,
being in black and white.
I mean, wow. Yeah.
Can you imagine watching this and the only thing you take away from it is this should have been in color?
Also, if you hate black and white films so much, why are you watching this? Just skip it.
And listen to me. I was in your shoes, okay? I used to be a person who was like, I don't really like black and white movies. I
Really?
don't really like movies. Oh, yeah. I will freely admit that. When I was younger, I used to say, oh, I don't really like movies made before like 1975.
Did you feel that way about TV shows too?
You know, I was never super into like Nick at Night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I've always loved black and white. Always. That never steered me away from a TV show or a film. In fact, it actually drew me in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So be like Michelle and older Seth.
Yeah.
If you hate black and white movies, just knock it off.
Grow
They're still
up.
making them today.
I would love to make one.
Hey, we covered 2 black and white movies this month.
We sure did.
Crazy.
Yeah.
12 Angry Men and Magic Spot.
Mm-hmm.
3-star review says, a classic that stands the test of time. One of those great put yourself in their shoes and how would you act movies. Takes place almost entirely in one room and set, but is engaging enough via dialogue to make you forget that. One every movie lover should watch at some point. And the 5-star review simply says, now the question is, who actually killed the father?
Wow. What an interesting 5-star review.
That's what I thought, and that's why I picked it. Because I was like, it was when I read that, it kind of was like the ending of this when they just say their names and they're like, well, bye. I was kind of like, well, wait a minute. Who killed the dad then?
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but...
Well, it does matter, right?
It does,
like, that's the whole big question, but...
Yeah.
The point, I guess, the lesson of this wasn't who killed the father.
So we rate things as a movie, a schmovie, or a film. We rate them 1 through 5 stars and give our final recommendations. Michelle, would you like to go first?
Sure.
All right. So for you, for 12 Angry Men, I wrote down that you were going to rate this a 4-star film.
Oh, it's a 5-star film.
Oh my God.
Seth, this is perfect. I love the length. It set out what it's supposed to do. I think the ending is perfect. This to me is 5 stars.
Wow.
And I'm absolutely recommending it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
Do you think anybody can watch this?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think anybody can watch this and you're going to get something from it.
Got it.
Unless you hate black and white films, then I don't know what I'm recommending to you.
Yeah. I don't know.
If someone came to you, Seth, and was like, I hate black and white films, and then I don't know, what else can we add to this avatar we're building? I'm like, what movie would I recommend to you? Because that means that person hates Bride of Frankenstein. They won't watch Invisible Man. Yeah. So, like, truly, do I even?
I mean, I would. When I think this is an odd one, right? Yeah. But when I think of black and white movies, I think of Brief Encounter. I think because that movie just had such a big, like, emotional impact on me. And we did that way, way back. That was like the second month that we started this show. We did Brief Encounter. I would just say, watch that and tell me you don't like feel something.
Absolutely not. That's
no, but I'm saying
I would not recommend that as their first black and white film.
No, not a first black and white film, but just like, okay, you've watched some stuff. Now watch this. And then I would probably say James Whale, Frankenstein.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then 12 Angry Men, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 Samurai. There's a lot.
Magic Spot.
Well, I mean, I'm always recommending that.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, no, there's... I've never watched a black and white movie and said, oh, I just wish this was in color. Like,
never. Never.
That's the silliest thing.
What, go ahead.
Remember High and Low with the pink smoke?
Yes.
Moment?
Oh, yeah.
So good.
I do, though, find myself, after I watch something in black and white, I want to see what it looks like in color just from a still photograph. Today, at my aunt's, I put on the Dick Van Dyke Show for her. And so I was watching that and I was like, oh, I wonder what their kitchen looks like in color because it looks very chromatic. And it's all like this blue, like the cabinets are blue. And anyway, I find that stuff fascinating. Yeah. Okay. For you, I mean, I wrote down 5-star film.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Are you
Yeah.
proud? This is how we're going out with Seth Bember?
I know. We're going out. Two 5-star films.
Yeah.
We call that a perfect pickle.
We do call that a perfect pickle.
We have a pickle rating system that is brewing. It's brining right now. Yeah. Hopefully next year it will be revealed, but
yeah, this has been in the works for months.
Yeah. And by in the works, we talk about it very briefly.
It's written
when
down.
we remember.
So
it is written down. Yeah. But this is a perfect pickle.
It's a perfect pickle.
It's a 5-star film across the board. I do think that this is a great example of perfection. And you might say, well, right, but it doesn't set out to do a lot. Great. Maybe movies should not set out to do a lot then. If that's what's hampering films from being this, maybe everything should be a little bit simpler.
If you have a good story,
yes,
and you set out for you accomplish the purpose of your story, then you've made a perfect film.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Did that make sense? It made sense in my head.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you don't stop and say, well, let's add this and let's add this and this and this, just leave it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to add something to us, we'd love it if you give us a rate and a review wherever you're listening. We've been stuck at 49 reviews on
I was just
Apple
about
Podcasts.
to check. I don't understand. Is this a cruel joke?
It's a cruel joke, I think. I think that many people have actually gone to leave a review and see that it's at 49 and think, nope, I'm going to keep this prank pulling on Michelle. Prank pulling.
On me, because I'm the one who's obsessed with it.
Yeah. You can also send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about 12 Angry Men, how you disagree with us. Maybe there should have been a lady in there. Who knows? 11 angry men and a little lady.
Doesn't have to be a little lady.
Have you seen that movie? Three men and a baby?
Yes, I have.
And then 3 men and a little lady? You can also support the show, patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. $5 a month gets you access to all of our additional episodes, our patron-only Discord, and you get to vote in upcoming episodes. Like next week.
I can't believe it.
Seth Bember's over.
How is it we're entering the last month of the year?
Well, that too. We've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah. How does it feel? Here's a check-in. How are we feeling?
I feel good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. How do you feel?
Good.
I remember when we started, and I kept saying 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just see what happens after 6 months. And if nobody's listening, then we'll, But people are listening, and more people are listening.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have a name for December's theme.
Last year we called it Home for the Holidays.
We did. Yep.
This year, On the Road for the Holidays. I don't know.
On the road for the holidays.
To grandmother's house we go.
How about Oh Little
Friendmas?
Friend. Yeah, let's call it that. Okay.
But then, Hanukkah is not represented.
Well, it never is.
Yeah, that's true.
How about Holla Patreon days?
Holla, like challah bread?
No, like HOLI. Holly.
Oh.
Like instead of holidays, it's Holla Patreon.
Yeah, okay.
So we don't have a theme for December yet, but what we did was we asked for submissions from our patrons, and we got them. And then instead of only doing one patron-voted movie this month, it's going to be all of them.
I mean, the theme is holiday movies. We just don't have a
Of
name.
course. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited about what got voted in, actually.
Are you? Because you are usually not a fan of holiday movies.
Well, the ones that got voted in, it's going to be an interesting spread this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So first up, in December, we're going to be talking about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Fun.
Directed by John Hughes.
Awesome.
And we're going to do this one first because it's closer to Thanksgiving, and this is a Thanksgiving movie. But that's all right. It's holidays.
Yeah, I love that. I love that we're doing something for Thanksgiving. That's great.
Have you seen this?
Yes, it's just been a really long time.
Sure. So second John Hughes movie. 1987, 93 minutes. Whoa. And it's currently streaming on Pluto TV and Paramount. But
Sweet. Cool. Have you
exciting.
seen this?
Oh, I have. I love this movie.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen this movie a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. Great. John Candy and
Yeah.
Steve Martin.
Yeah. I mean, love those two.
Yeah. All right. Well, goodbye, November.
Goodbye, Seth Bember.
Mm-hmm.
This was fun. You picked some good ones, Seth. It was fun to, and I hope our listeners enjoyed, I don't know, going into like the psyche of Seth.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that this is, if you put these 4 movies together, it's a good snapshot of me. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, patrons, for voting 12 Angry Men. And thank you for listening, wherever you are. And remember, folks, I got nothing. Maybe I should start doing that. A moral at the end of every episode.
It's so weird you say that.
Okay.
Okay, because I was watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, and at the end, he's a TV writer, comedy writer, and they end their show with like, and remember to always, yeah. And I was telling Aunt this the other night, and I was like, oh my God, I got inspired. I meant to write this in our notes. I got inspired from the Dick Van Dyke Show that Seth, we should end every episode with, and remember, it was like, remember to save your money. It might be useful one day. I think that's what they,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got one. Okay. All right. Hey, thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, if you're in a hot room and the fan won't turn on, try flipping a switch. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good one.
Very nice. That was good.
Movie Friends is produced by Seth Vargas and Michelle Rubenstein. Music by Anthony Vicora. If you like the show, please subscribe and give us a rating. It really helps us find new friends. Thanks.